I'm live. Good afternoon, Facebook. I guess it's kind of still morning, but whatever. I'm here today to talk about big data, online surveillance, and ways you can protect yourself online. I found this cool filter that's kind of spooky, adds to the ambience. I feel like I'm in a movie, this is a horror movie, and this is the only film left over after I was killed off. Is that too deep? Probably. It's only fucking 11 in the morning. Gotta get my stuff together here. Okay, anyways, talking about big data, online surveillance, and ways you can protect yourself, because this matters. A lot of people don't know about it, and a lot of people, because they don't know about it, don't know how to protect themselves. So I'm not an expert by any means, but I do study digital media, and my studies in digital media have showed me a lot, gave me a lot of insights that I can share with you guys about how to protect yourself online. So I'm going to go over exactly what big data is. It's hard to define because there's so much of it that's used in so many different ways. I'm going to talk about who is looking at that big data, why they're looking at it, ways you contribute to big data, and then I'll give you tips on how to protect yourself. So I have my notes here. I've never actually done like a lesson before, so I have notes. I'm cheating, I know. So first of all, what is big data? Well, in my own words, it's a term for the collection, a mass collection of information from repositories, meaning where information ends up. And so big data is all of that information together, and then people go in and they pick what parts are important to them. It can also take the form of metadata, which is data about data, which sounds a bit confusing, but in short, it's information that describes the information itself. So the who, what, when, where, and why of a piece of information. So if there's a book, the book itself is information, but information about the book is metadata. Any questions about that, just let me know, because it is a bit confusing. Some good resources before I get too into it are YouTube. You can just search for like minute or two clips on big technology phases and big technologies themselves, and they break them down really easily with graphics and some minor explanations. Okay, so now that we talked about not exactly what big data is, but what it can look like, I'm going to give you, I have a coding professor, Mrs. Dorothea Salo. She teaches coding here. She's also a digital librarian and works with information systems a lot. And in our most recent online lecture, she gave us 3 ways to think about metadata, which also applies to 3 ways to think about big data. So her 3 categories are PI, or personally identifiable information, long-tail information, and behavior trails. I'll explain a bit about what each of those are. I'll give you an example so you know, and then I'll talk about ways that you contribute to this information, and you may not know, because that's important, is that a lot of people don't know they're contributing their personal information, private information, and I think that everybody should be aware of that. So number 1, personally identifiable information. Her definition is identifier-ish metadata about you that ties other information to you. So her examples are social security numbers, driver's license numbers, credit card numbers, because they're not specifically your name, but all you have to do is look up that number to find out who it belongs to. So ways you contribute to this: when you online shop and you enter your credit card information, it directly links back to who you are. And so then the site that you're looking at can find you on social media, they can find what other sites you're shopping on, and then they can compete. A lot of this is also involved with marketing, which I'll go into a bit. So the second kind of big data, big metadata, is long tail information. So this one I have to think about visually because it's a little bit complicated. But in her words, it's information that is correct about you and mostly nobody else. So it's information that makes you unique, and it's dangerous because it points directly to who you are. So like I said, I think about it visually. And so if you have a graph, y-axis, x-axis, forgive me if I'm wrong, math freaks, there's a sharp peak of information here, and that applies to mostly everybody. So has a Facebook account. Mostly everybody's going to be in this peak section. And then there's this long tail of information with really low distribution, and that's very unique things that only pertain to one person or a few people, and that's the long tail of the information. So an example, because I know it's really confusing, I still don't, maybe not fully understand it, but who am I to critique myself here? I've got to be confident. Okay, anyways, long tail information example, Netflix. Netflix recommendations are specifically tailored to you because of exactly what you are doing on Netflix. It's not looking at who your friends are or who the other shared accounts are. It's looking at, okay, I watched 13 Reasons Why for 10 minutes before I got bored, and then I switched over to this other show. And Netflix is going to pick up on that, and that's unique to everybody. So their Netflix recommendations are unique to everybody. So on the graph, the peak of information is that everybody has a Netflix account. The long tail distribution is that everybody has different niches. Niche is a good word. They have different niches in Netflix, and Netflix thus recommends different things for everybody. So let me know if you have any questions about this. I can answer them live. I'll try my best anyways. So how you contribute to long tail information is you just do things that are very unique to you and that can be linked right back to you. So like I said, you watch this show followed by this show at this time of night. Netflix is going to look at that and say that's unique to you. We're going to make recommendations unique to you. Here are your recommendations. Alright, so the third kind of big metadata is called behavior trails, and this is probably the most common. It's the one I'm most familiar with and can most able explain. It's trends or patterns that you display online, especially. It's easy to track, so I'll use that example. So when you go on Amazon, you are looking for a certain object, or you go to Amazon like once a week or something and you look for similar things. Amazon looks at your search patterns, so what you searched first, what you clicked on from those searches, if you looked at recommended searches or similar searches. All of that can be used to tailor ads, to find out more about you as a consumer and get you to buy things. Yes, people do that. Another example is places you repeatedly search. So this might actually be the best example. When you Google something, how do you type in the words? What are you Googling for? Are you repeatedly Googling for the same thing? And Google recognizes that, and they take those patterns and those trends of what search terms and queries they're running, and then they make adjustments to Google or their SEO ranking based on that. Another thing is where your cell phone, and probably you have been, via geolocation. So if you check into Facebook constantly, like maybe once a month, you travel for work, you check in every time and Facebook shows that. Facebook can then change the ads and your margins and like customize the content it shows you based on where you're traveling each month. So say I'm flying from, let's say, Los Angeles to New York, and I stop at Chicago every time. If I check in on Facebook, it's going to keep track of that, and it's going to know roughly when I'm leaving, when I'm arriving, and when I'm in Chicago, and it's going to give me content based on where I am. So it like I said, it could be pretty scary, but like, what did you expect? You're giving the internet your literal exact location. And then finally, I think this one's really interesting. A lot of students don't know about this, but I've heard about it before, and my professor talked about it last week, learning analytics. So again, we're talking about behavior trails and big metadata for those of you who just joined. So learning analytics is an example of that. Universities are tracking what you're doing online when you're connected to their Wi-Fi network or when you're visiting a university webpage. They might not know your exact information. They might just call you an anonymous student, but they can see how students are clicking around, what they're looking at on their networks. They claim, we talk about this too, like claims that companies make when they say they're using your data. So universities claim that they are tracking best practices for students, saying like, okay, this student has a 4.0 GPA, they visit these sites daily, they do their homework online at about this time each night. But who's to say that they're not also harvesting academic information about you, personal information about you, yada yada. They can be using that information for mostly anything, and the problem is that students can't get access because you don't even know who's in charge of this information. Personally, I wish that the university would hold some sort of presentation at the beginning of the year and say like, we are keeping an eye on what you're doing when you're online using our university resources especially, so just be aware of that, because no one ever tells you that you're being watched by your university. It may seem like an obvious thing, but to some people it takes them back pretty far. So yeah, learning analytics is actually a really cool section of information that I wish I knew a little bit more about, but just know that your university is watching what you're doing, and maybe not for the most moral purposes. Okay, so I talked about what big data was, examples of it, the 3 big categories. Now I'm going to talk about who uses data collection and why are they collecting your information. This one's important because I think, like I said, you could contribute to all of these information repositories where data mining occurs without realizing it. But then again, I think it's you might not even know who's data mining in the first place, and that can affect how you interact with Facebook or Google or what you post on social media. So I'm going to go over just some that I thought of, some really obvious ones. The big 3 are Google, Facebook, and Amazon. They are watching you, yes, in Big Brother fashion, very, very invasively if you know it or not. When you agree to terms and conditions on Google, Facebook, or Amazon, you're just giving them access to a lot of stuff that you might not know. So another suggestion while we're here is that you read the terms and conditions all the way through, or you consult somebody and say, hey, what does this mean? Asking questions is a good way to know too. So yeah, when you go on Google, Facebook, or Amazon, they are conglomerates, so they own all this other stuff the other applications, other websites that you might be using and contributing your information to that you might not know of. So even if you're not directly on Facebook, I know they bought out some other social media platforms and applications. You're contributing to Facebook information repositories through that. So that one is one to be aware of. Criminals and thieves, obviously, it's like I'm like a DARE officer right now. Beware of the criminals and the thieves. So people are watching you, and they're getting a hold. They're looking for your information, but more specifically, they're looking for a break in security so they can get your information. So I think about criminals and thieves online as, if you've ever seen Home Alone, there are 2 robbers, and they go to this neighborhood, and they kind of like roll around in their little creepy van, and they keep an eye on all the houses. And when the houses' lights turn off at a certain time, that must mean the family's on vacation. So they're getting a hold of the data by watching, and then they're looking for that break in security where they can go in and steal things. So like I said, it's not people following you on the street. I mean, it could be geolocation data. It's more people seeing if you're checking in you're on vacation and you're checking in to on Facebook to all these different resorts in Mexico or something, and you're clearly not home, and somebody can see that, even if it's one of your Facebook friends that you trust, and they can go tell somebody, or they themselves can abuse that information. So that one's obviously a really big threat. Like I said, your university is watching. They say they're using for learning analytics, but just always be careful with what you do. anywhere you shop online is watching you. If you've ever realized that what you look for on Amazon, all of a sudden the ads pop up in the margin of Facebook. You're like, how do they know? Well, it's not private information, so step one. Anywhere you create an account and you have to log into is watching what you're doing when you're on that site. That just makes it, to become a member, makes it easier for them to track your information because they have probably your first and last name, an email address. They can watch what you're doing on their site and then maybe email you a follow-up and say like, hey, saw you were like looking at this product, here's a suggestion. Your employers, current and prospective, this is a lesson we've been told since MySpace days. Be careful what you put online because people are looking. For me, it's almost a little bit scary because I study social media and digital media, and whenever I interview somewhere, it's basically required that you give them your Instagram handle, your Twitter handle, you link them to your Facebook, your LinkedIn, any social media that you exist on, they're looking at. So just remember, be careful with what you're doing, and also be careful of employer abuse. So don't put your social security number, obviously never put it out there, but maybe don't give it to them right away if you're not sure they're a legitimate company, or if they have some weird interactions with your social media, anything like that. Obviously the government. I know I sound like the X-Files, but especially surveillance branches, the NSA, the CIA. If you don't think that the government can see what you're typing in to Google, you need to reevaluate. It's okay though, like I said, some of this takes some getting used to. Social media platforms, obviously, and then email servers. You notice that you get a lot of spam, or somebody got a hold of your email address. How did they do that? It's not that hard to find, so just be aware of that. So now that I've named some of the people, and feel free to type in like any suggestions, or say like, hey, I've had this experience with this company taking my information and abusing it, or you can privately message me. I'm super interested in this. That's why I'm talking about it. So we talked about who uses big data, what it is. Why do people use that big data though? So that's important too, to know not only who is taking your information, but what they're doing with it. So like I said, it has a lot to do with marketing. I'm studying partially advertising, if you will, too, so I am super interested in consumer psychology, consumer habits, but all of that comes from research and data collection. You don't just know who the types of the demographic of people who walk into Target are. You do market research to find that out. So a lot of information that you put online, a lot of the big data is used to narrow consumer targeting in an effort to get you to consume something. So like I said, when you're on Amazon and you're searching for this product, Amazon is going to suggest other things that you are likely to buy because they already know what you like. So target messaging, target emails, target products, target TV series, like I said on Netflix, all of that is being collected in an effort to just make things more efficient on the marketer side, but also, like I said, you don't have to contribute your information. So there is a data trade itself. So there are companies out there who just collect data, and then their sole reason is why are you so woke? I study it. Go study it. Take some classes and it's really fun. Thank you, Rooney. Okay, so another thing, where was I? Okay, so to make money off the data itself, there are companies that exist to collect data, and then all they do with it is sell it. They don't even look at it. They just sell it to Facebook. They sell it to Amazon. They say, here's this information that I know is so valuable to you, so pay me for it. Because not all information can be tracked directly from an application or a website. There are companies who are basically like little spies, and they go in and they find your information and they sell it. It's kind of twisted, I know, but it's okay. I'm going to tell you how you can avoid that. Another reason people collect big information is to identify you, to find you, to learn something about you, for good or for bad. It can be dangerous to have somebody be able to know exactly your first and last name, your address, places you frequently check into on a Saturday night. What else we got here? So to abuse your information or use it against you, like I said, people aren't always out there for the good or for moral purposes. And then there are some better aspects to data collection, which I think go overlooked in this conversation, so I will mention them. Although I do recommend that you be more skeptical and you don't think that all big data collectors are good people. But like I said, it can be, for website building, for example, people want to collect data about how other people are interacting with their website. So to learn about user engagement, usability, and traffic patterns can be used to improve your blog or your shopping site. If you're a small business and you just got online and you have no idea, you can consult with a digital media strategist who will track what people are doing on your website, and they can give you tips on how to improve the design of your website to get more traffic, or to place the products here, here, and here instead of there to get people to look at them. So like I said, it's not all bad. And usability testing is another important part of websites collecting your data. Usability testing is meant for people with disabilities who need to use a computer or website. If the search tab is in a different place than it should be and enough people report it or enough people aren't finding it quickly, that can all be tracked with big data, and then those adjustments can be made so that when somebody who is blind is using the computer, I know it sounds a little ironic, but there are keyboards that allow blind people to use the computer. It's another really cool aspect you guys should look into. You just have to make sure that everybody can use it, and so feedback is good on that part. And then, of course, to make content more widely discoverable, for better or for worse. But like I said, I study social and digital media, so it's really important for me to be able to broadcast my content as far and wide as I can to reach as many people as I can with it, especially if it's an important message like this one. That's why I'm doing it on Facebook Live. So some examples of making content more widely discoverable: Twitter, tracking what people are talking about and tweeting about. So when you're on your phone and you get a notification that this person and this person liked this tweet, and you don't even follow them or you don't even talk to them, they're just one of your followers, something like that. That all has to do with Twitter tracking traffic and seeing how it applies to you and suggesting it to you. So like I said, you might not even interact directly with it, but the social media sites are making it available to you. They're saying like, hey, you might not have seen this, but your followers did. This is how you can look at it now. Another example is Banjo. So we learned about this in one of my classes. Banjo is an application. On their website, they show only geolocated public posts made from mobile devices. Those posts are drawn from a world feed, which aggregates all these different social networks. So I know that sounded confusing, but it's like a giant map on your computer screen, and you can zoom into any place, city, street, and you can see all the Twitter posts from that section, all of the Instagram content, all of the Facebook content, just what is happening in that area. And that is very useful for newsrooms, and a lot of newsrooms use Banjo for them to find out what's happening, and then for them to have crowdsourced information at their fingertips. So if you're making information publicly available, it's there for anybody to use. So like I said, it's good for some people. Banjo, I know, is expensive, and it requires a lot of consulting, so people are going to be using Banjo for the purpose of finding news, not for abusing people's information. Okay, so I talked about who uses big data, why do they use big data, how you contribute. Now I'm going to be talking about tips. This is the important part, I think, for everybody. Over the course of my digital studies completion, it's a certificate here at the University of Wisconsin. I highly recommend it. It's not hard to complete, and it goes really well with my journalism background. It teaches me different ways, like different thoughts, of schools of thought behind technology and different new technologies that I'm learning. Oh, thank you, Amber Rose. She's obsessed with my hair. Oh, that's so cute. Thank you. Wow. Gosh, I'm getting bashful over here. All right. All right, back to digital studies. Like I said, it's shown me a lot of it's given me a lot of insights that I think if you don't take the time to read and take a class on this stuff, you won't learn about it. So that's what I'm here to tell you guys about. I'm going to give you guys some tips and advice that you might not be comfortable with, because especially if you're young, you were born and raised online or on social media, or if you're like me and you study social media and you're basically required to be on it, then these adjustments might be tricky for you. But I do think, one of my friends said this, it's better to be informed than misinformed. No, yeah, it's better to be uninformed. I don't remember. Basically, it's better to know about this stuff and not do anything about it than just to remain in the dark about it. So even if you don't make these changes and you're just, all you take away from today is that there is something to be watching and be aware of, then that's like all I can ask for. So like I said, you don't have to take these tips, but they're very useful. So yes, Amazon's Alexa is watching you. Now that you know that, will you do something about it? My advice is yes, but like I said, these are big changes, so don't feel rushed into it. Don't feel like you have to do it alone. If you need anybody to guide you through it, just let me know. I just came up with my 5 or 6 biggest tips, and I'm going to go through those. And then the last one is something that like people just maybe won't even do, but I'm going to mention it as just a disclosure. Okay, so tip number 1, disable geolocation on your social media. Stop letting people know exactly where you are. In your Instagram pictures, Twitter has a geolocation feature. Facebook lets you check into places. When you use geolocation, you are telling people where you are at that moment. And if you use it enough, it becomes easy to track where you are, where you're going, where you go often, who you're with. All of that is really scary, because if you're being stalked, for example, I know this is an extreme example, but that person can see exactly what you're doing. They can create a fake Facebook account, become your friend, and see where you check in. And if that doesn't scare you, it probably should, or you should reevaluate what you're doing. Instagram is another one where you geolocate your images. Like I said, you can continue to do these things, just know what they mean, know that it can be dangerous to you. So that's number 1, tip number 1, turn off geolocation. Tip number 2, do not save sensitive information or access it in public. Best example is your banking app. Don't open it in public if you can, because it becomes discoverable that you're accessing it through other Wi-Fi networks or data. It's out there. People know that you're doing it, or someone can look over your shoulder. It's that easy. Don't save your passwords, especially on banking sites, because all somebody would have to do is open the app and click enter, because all your login information is ready to go. And that leads to easy access to stealing all of your money, transferring it to their account, just like shutting down your cards, whatever. Financial abuse is a huge one. So don't save any sensitive information. Use security questions when you can. Don't give people a free pass to your accounts. It's that simple. Tip number 3, fake your birth date and other direct identifiers. I know this sounds ridiculous, because the point of Facebook and social media is to be able to find somebody else out there by their name. If you know what year they were born or what year they were in preschool with you, that makes it easier. But like I said, it's a direct identifier. It makes it so easy to find exactly who you are in a less amount of time. It's a direct trail of breadcrumbs, if you will. So it's not, and also using your real birth date isn't 110% necessary. You don't have to put in the exact year you were born. Even if you just change the month, like that will trick people up more than changing the entire thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just change some things up about yourself. You change your name and just let people know what your new name on Facebook is. Like, it's that easy as going up to your friend and saying like, hey, I changed my name. I wanted to make myself less discoverable and less trackable, and I didn't want to directly link it to my identity. So, like I said, it's a big change. You don't have to make it. It's just a suggestion. Another tip is demand to know what your information is being used for. So, big one is your social security number and your credit card information. Usually when you enter your credit card information, you know what it's being used for, but your social security number, you have the right to contact a company or a website and ask them over the phone or an email, is my social security number, is it necessary to enter, and how is it going to be used? You might find that you don't even need to put it in, or you might find out that, you know, like, your information isn't being used for the best. So like I said, you have a right to know because it's your information. So don't be afraid to question it or question how it's being used. Second to last tip, switch it up. So like that breadcrumb trail I was talking about earlier, don't make it so easy for people. So if you're just searching on Google consistently, and somebody knows that, they can go to Google and then they can find your information and abuse it. So change it up. I know this is hard for a lot of people, but change your search engine every now and again. You can go back to where you started, but don't just use it consistently, because if all of your information and activity is in one spot, that makes it so easy for people to find. Like I said, I don't even make all these changes, but I'm working on it. Another one is emails. So if you have one email that you're getting all of your information sent to, it makes it so easy for advertisers to link on to what other advertisers are doing or find your email address and just spam you. You know, change it up a little bit. Change the whole, you can switch from Hotmail to Gmail, from Gmail to Outlook. You know, do what you gotta do, just don't make it easy to find your information. The last tip I know is a bit taboo for a lot of us youngins born and raised online. Like I said, I can't do this because I'm studying social and digital media, which requires me to be on social and digital media, but there's nothing stopping you from this. And it might take like a thought process change. It might take, you know, something to happen to you before you get to this step. But my final piece of advice is to remove yourself entirely from online. And that's asking a lot, I know. But the best way to prevent your information from being abused online is to not exist online. How do you even know where you exist online? You can run a Google search. You can go to your old accounts and see if they're still there. And then you want to disable and delete those accounts. Leave no trace of your name except what is out there through maybe your school or university. You can even contact them and ask them to take it down. But like I said, the best way to prevent abuse of your personal information online is to stop putting it online. Like I said, I also look what I said. It's a big change. I'm nowhere near that step, but like I said, there are small steps you can take to get there. And like I said, if you have any questions, you can contact me about it. My last piece of information I'm going to leave you with before I get to some fun stuff. Limit what information you put on the web about yourself, and it becomes harder to find, use, and abuse the three. So if they can find you, they can use your information, and if they can use that information, they probably won't use it for good, and they'll abuse that information. So I'm going to actually be posting a blog post about this later with some links to references, some videos, an explanation, a breakdown of all of the stuff I talked about, because I'm not the greatest at talking about this stuff on Facebook Live. I'm really trying here. I think I'll end on a fun note, though. If you are interested in this kind of stuff, there is my favorite book right now about information technology is The Circle by Dave Eggers. They are coming out with a movie with Emma Watson and Tom Hanks. Woo! I'm so excited. April 28th. The book is probably 10 times better and probably goes into a zillion more details about information abuse by big companies. Hey, Shelly, thanks for the love. But yes, it's a terrific book. Dave Eggers is a terrific author, And I think it's a necessary conversation that needs to be happening, and I'm glad pop culture is having that discussion, and they're having it in entertaining ways so that it applies to people like the millennials raised online, God forbid us, right? Yeah. But we are being, if you're conscious of this information and you're aware of it and how it's being used, you just, it becomes harder to abuse that information, like I said. So second, pop cultural references, Black Mirror. It's a Netflix original series, one of my favorites. It's each episode breaks down an individual conflict between humanity and technology. It's very Twilight Zone-y, so it's kind of creepy, and it makes you think about things that a little avant-garde, so like other shows and stuff won't talk about. There are a few episodes I can recommend. If you want to know more, you can comment about that. And then my final, I'm going to post this on my blog post. It's a TED Talk about the dangers of big data and how it's going to be abused. So like I said, I just pretty much talked about that, but everybody has a different experience with big data. They have different experiences with being abused by big data collectors, identity theft, security theft, financial information abuse. I'm rambling because I don't really know what else to say, but yeah, like I said, I'm going to post this video in a blog post in a few minutes after I finish. Any last minute questions, you can direct them to me. You can post them on my wall. You can email me. Like, I'm breaking my rule here because I'm giving you guys all of my social media on my Facebook page, but like I said, I know what I'm using it for, so it becomes harder for me to be surprised when it is abused or it is taken for granted. So yeah, that was a big talk. I'm tired. It's too early for this. It's Monday. But yeah, stay tuned for the blog post. Thanks for watching. You guys are a fantastic audience. I'll try this again sometime with maybe a more, like a less daunting topic. But yeah, you guys are the best. Happy Monday. Bye.